Unionization in the games industry. This is a panel where we gathered some people who have experience with these processes in the industry, and we want to talk about them and give you the knowledge that the people accumulated over their time working with organizing for workers' rights. My name is Anna. By day, I'm a game designer. By different days, I'm doing this. And these are our lovely panelists. Please introduce yourselves.
So hello, my name is Jamie Elms. I'm a media and games marketing producer at, formerly Bytro, now what's it called now? Twin Harbor in Hamburg. And I also am one of the members of SWP Media. So if you've seen like Tales from the S-Spawn and whatnot, hi, that's me. And I'm also a member of VODs and someone who's very happy to be here today to talk about the importance of unionization and works councils.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rüdiger. I'm a producer by day. I work right now at an indie company playing history in Berlin. I've mostly worked in indie. And I have also been involved in the foundations of 2 works councils now at this point. I also have been a member of one of them. So yeah, that's my... And I've been, of course, part of our unionization effort in general. So that's my background, and I can tell you a little bit about that. And I guess I hand over to you.
Hi. You need to talk. I had to turn it on.
Or you just use this one.
Or I could use this one because that one's broken. Hello. I'm Devin Soika. I am a senior narrative designer, and I've worked in the indie, mobile, and AAA spaces now. My backstory is I was part of founding one of the first games unions in the United States, the VOW Union. We went on the first strike in the games industry, and we won the first strike in the games industry. That was with the CWA, the Communications Workers of America. So now I'm a volunteer organizer with them, and in my free time, I teach classes for other games and tech workers about how to start a union back over there. And when I moved to Germany for work, my first thought was like, gotta join the union. What's the union here? And so I joined Verdi, and that connected me to these fine folks. Please excuse my phone. I often have like too much to say about any given topic, so this is to make sure that I stay on track.
Hello everyone, I'm Jan Mardukin. I'm a game designer from the Netherlands, currently working at Limbic Entertainment, and I have a bit of experience setting up workers' councils, and I'm also a proud union member, and it's a topic very dear to my heart, so I would also like to talk a little bit about that today.
Right. Thank you. And with that, we just immediately start with a small starter question. So what do you think of the current state of the industry, and when and why did you think about unionization the first time?
Does it work? Yes, it does. So I think it's fair to say the games industry in general right now is in a very tough state, certainly, especially so compared to the past few years. I feel like on a daily basis, I'm hearing about, if not layoffs, people expecting layoffs, people feeling like, oh, is my job going to be replaced with an AI? Or for those who have their jobs, increasingly I'm seeing, I've heard described as the exploitation of passion, where it's more and more people where it's like, whoa, I didn't get a raise, but at least I'm getting to work on video games, right? And I'm like, can you buy groceries? Can you afford rent? Yeah. So I think we're in a very challenging state right now, and I do think unions are providing a glimpse of hope in this time, here in Germany at least, especially as I'm seeing more and more companies here form workers' councils. I first became familiar with unions in general with my very first job I had, which was back in Victoria, BC, Canada. Woo! I was, funny enough, covered by the Steelworkers Union there, which was very lovely while I was in university. And then when I graduated and moved to Germany, I went ahead and I joined Verdi because, quite frankly, I think it makes a lot of sense to join a union. I think having that sense of collective power and community is just so crucial and very reassuring as well.
Actually, I was just looking at my notes where I was wondering what can I even add to that, because you actually summed up specifically the state of the industry right now pretty well. So I think I'm going to save us the time instead of repeating myself and just hand it over to you immediately.
Yeah, the reason I got involved, I mean, in the US, we're not taught very much about unions. They're not really common in my generation at all. I didn't know like what one was or what happened, and I just got very lucky. There had been some really bad experiences where I was working at Voltage with a lot of different writers, and we got together and realized that we were all experiencing the same problems. They would dangle raises in front of us and be like, oh, well, we can't pay you very much right now, but the hope is you get an increase year over year until you can afford kind of to work here. Until I spoke to a writer who was 5 years my senior, who'd been there 5 years longer than me, and we were paid the same amount. And that was devastating for me because I knew that this person, I had seen the numbers, brought in millions of dollars single-handedly with the contents and routes she was working on. So just at the time, CWA they'd started this program called CODE, the Campaign to Organize Digital Employees. And I got very lucky. I kind of Googled, like, are you allowed to do this to us, you know? And that their webpage popped up. And so even then, we did not realize that unionizing or organizing in any kind of fashion was something we needed. We still felt very like, well, if we were good enough, they would pay us more. Or if, you know, we're just dinky little mobile game developers, you know, like if we had the real skills or the real things that industry people respect, like it would be better for us. But it was in talking to these union reps for the first time and saying, hey, this is our situation. Like, just what do you think? Is there something we can do about that? And they got back to us within an hour. And they're like, you are being exploited, like legally by definition exploited. And that changed myself, like through this process, my sense of self-respect forever. So yeah, that was how I got involved.
Yeah, so Jamie said, the future of the industry is like scary, like especially with things like AI coming up. So there's definitely looming and a lot of layoffs. That's definitely, I think, the state of the industry. And for my involvement, it's something that you've been hearing like maybe since like for a few years already. Like, you know, people should be unionizing. You're like, yeah, people should be unionizing, but you don't really think more about it. You don't go further than that. And then you're working in industry, and then your boss calls like overtime and you have to work longer, and you're not really happy with how that is handled, or you don't really have a say in the matter. And there might be other things you're frustrated about in your workplace where you can't really say anything about it. You don't really have a way to express and enforce your basic rights that you have. And this is also how the topic sort of came to me. And at some point I had some good friends that helped me join this circle that where we could talk about unionization and connect with other video game developers in Germany, and I never looked back since. It was very, very nice, like to connect with other people in other industries, that in other companies in Germany, but also abroad, that we can share similar stories and work together and figure out what we can do.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm pretty sure that a lot of us feel similar about what is currently happening. But just in case not everyone is up to speed, would one of you quickly give us a rundown? What is a union and what do they do?
Right. So just to basically put it, a union is a organization that you can be a member of. And usually the members of these organizations are employees. And what the organization does is they provide certain benefits from their employees. That's sort of the basics. So let's say, for example, that you maybe you surprisingly get laid off by your boss, or you get a new contract and you're not sure if how the contract is working. Then a union can, for example, provide you a lawyer and legal support, and they can look at your contract and they can tell you more about what you can do, but they can also help you with. So if the boss actually does something scummy that they are not allowed to do, they can actually provide you the full legal support, so you don't actually have to pay the legal costs. So you actually have some legal backing and some weight class that you owe to yourself that you can actually do. So that's the first thing that they give you. There's two types of unions. So there's some unions are specialized. So the specialized unions. So in the US and Canada, I believe we have the United Video Game Developers Front. So that's it. The United Video Game Workers Front. So that's a specialized union for game developers. And in some other countries, like in VOD, in Germany, that we have VOD, and VOD is a broad union. So there's multiple types of workforces in there. So, for example, the entire IT sector is for VOD. And some other countries, like, for example, the Netherlands, where I'm from, you have a very broad union like the FNV, and like anyone can sign up to that. It doesn't really matter. So it depends a bit from country to country how the union is structured. But the main thing you need to know is you can be a member, you can sign up, and they give you sort of benefits to start. And they also help you connect to the other people in the industry that are also signed up. And the juicy thing is if enough people sign up to a union, they can do what is called collective bargaining, which means that they can negotiate with the industry, and they can get you all better, everyone better workers' rights, because they can actually threaten the bosses with strikes. So that's the main thing that you get. So if enough people sign up to a union, you become more powerful together. Does anyone want to add anything to that? Or?
I think you summed it up pretty well. I think the one addition is that when you think about these individual benefits that you get, like legal help and stuff like that, that's something that you, for example, in Germany, it's really easy to get it. You can just sign up for, like, unlike in the US where you have to unionize your shop, right? So we'll get into that. In Germany, you just sign up and you get these benefits. But obviously, the ultimate goal of unions are these are mass organizations. So we want the more people in, the more powerful we become as a group. So that's the ultimate goal. So like when I think when you join a union, it's completely fair to join for like the individual benefits, because that's really helpful. But like on a long term, you can think of it as like, it's something that we as a group, we want to influence how the workers' rights are changed on a larger scale. That's where collective bargaining and stuff like that comes in. So they are organizations not for us as individual workers only, but even rather they are for us as workers, as a, I want to say group, but let's call it class, because that's what it is.
Thank you. Yeah, we already heard a little bit about it and touched upon the topic, but I still want to ask, how can you get approached and how can you approach unions if you want to actively seek support? Where do you have to be to get talking to them?
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, the number one place if you want to meet people from a union in person, well, you're in luck, funny enough. But no, seriously, I think in-person events like this are really good for this. I mean, you and I quite literally met because I gave a talk about combating sexism in the games industry. And what was it I said at the end of the panel where someone asked a question where it was like, well, what if me and multiple colleagues are having a problem? How can we make sure this doesn't happen to all of us? So I was like, so what you do is you get together as a group, and you make your voices heard about it. And I think everyone got the cue on that. But in addition, honestly, I think with Verdi especially, I mean, they have, you may see the little cards on your seats. They have a really good website. That, fun fact, is actually available in a multitude of languages that will give you all sorts of fantastic info on joining and seeking support and such.
Yeah, maybe also a tip for like the pamphlet that you have here. If you fold it out completely and then turn it around, you will actually get an English version for everybody who can't speak German. It's just folded that way. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so basically, this is the easiest way is just for example, in Germany, is just join the union. That's the simplest thing. You can just, I mean, taking the German example, you just go to the website, you sign up, and that's it. And then you can look around and see who are your union representatives in the area and just write them and say, like, write about your problems or your questions, and then you get in a conversation and see where you go. If in other countries, the other thing that you always should do is talk to your colleagues. You know, like talk to the people that you work with, what problems you have and how you can do that. But just, find the union that's responsible for you and talk to them. By the way, if you don't know which one it is, you can also just write to the one that you guess it is and ask, am I right here? And they might direct you and they will direct you further. So that's, but yeah, talk to the people, talk to the unions, talk to your colleagues and see how you can band together.
We'll also have a list by country posted here so that you know like which union is doing game dev right now.
At least a few. I mean, it's not an exhaustive list because, you know, it's a big world. It's a global thing, but some. Huh?
Hey, we could go over it real quick.
Well, I'm sorry for everybody from France. I'm sitting in front of the STGV, but like, well, we'll keep that up for a while.
And the important like for us, we were very self-conscious in the VOW union about like reaching out and being like, please help. You know, we're not members, we don't pay dues, we can't even join. We're contractors, right? In the US, you're not allowed to join a union as a contractor because you have no labor rights, but it's their job to be nice to you. So like, don't worry about it.
Okay, then, yeah, you already touched upon it a little bit, and this is kind of where we're going to do. You can join your union, you do it on your own. You can, that's your own decision, but there are also ways to start working together in a company before you even have a bigger amount of people in the union, which is, I think, different from country to country. We'll come to it. But in Germany, you can, for example, form a workers' council. So can you give us a bit of options, what we have, what we can do in Germany or in Europe to organize?
So maybe what's the difference between a works council and a union to get it onboarded? Because sometimes this is mixed. So generally, like a union is the general representation of all workers of a section, but like, let's keep it simple, the union for everybody. And then works councils are workers' representations in a company. Not all countries have it like this. Germany has it, France has a version of it, there's a lot of versions of that, but generally it means that you organize the workers at the place where you work to form, a council that then represents the workers towards company management. You can think of it like this, it's a form of workers' democracy that's implemented directly at the place where you work. And this is also how it works in Germany. And the fun part in Germany is that it doesn't exist automatically, which would be also an interesting thing, that every company just would have to have one. But every worker, and single is also important, has the rights to ask for one, or let's put it better, to push for one. So this is your right. It's not that you have to ask the bosses to get a works council. You just decide, I want one, and then you kick off the process of doing that. The process is, well, as everything, not just in Germany, but in the world, an administrational thing, but I don't want to go into detail here. But generally, what you do is, yeah, you just push up the process to create a works council, and that's how you do it. That's technically enough, but what you obviously should do is generally to get the support of your colleagues for the works council, so you don't get derailed by, well, we call it union busting, because that's basically what it is, although it's not technically a union, but like basically by efforts where your boss then would say like, oh, but do we really need this? This takes so much time. We can just talk, but the difference is simple. If you just talk without a works council, you don't have any power. If you have a works council, you have legal rights that you gain, that you can refer to, that you can actually force their hand, because if you don't apply to it, well, you can sue them as a group.
Yeah, I think you took a bit stuff ahead from my next question. No, don't worry about it. I think it's a great way to change the topic. So, Janmer, you had already experience in organizing workers' councils. So I would like to ask you to give us a rundown, like how do you structure organizing a workers' council? Where to start? Where to go? When is it time to act?
So the first disclaimer is that it's, like Rudiger mentioned, it's a bit different depending on what countries you're in. So in the US, there's not really a structure for workers' councils, while in Europe, there usually is in most countries. In some countries, it's automatic. I believe in France, it's you must have a workers' council if you have at least 10 employees. What? Spain too? Okay, I didn't know that. In the Netherlands, it's mandatory from 50 people on, but you can have it before. And in Germany, like Rudiger said, it's not automatic, but you can always ask for it. So it's a bit of a weird system. So you are there and you want to set up a workers' council. In theory, you could go right now, get some documents signed. Do talk to us first, and we can help you a little bit with what the documents are, and then just go, I want to set up this process. Doing so is not a very good idea, because what happens is the moment you kick off this process, there has to be a vote after like a month. And this vote, every employee in the office is going to come together and they have to vote for setting up this thing. And what happens if you tell the process is that you give your management a chance to talk to everybody first. And this can lead to a lot of misinformation about what we're doing here. So what you want to do is you want to talk to your colleagues. You want to talk to them first about what is happening, what you're going to do, and why you're doing it. So that when the process is kicked off, people are on the same line and they know what they need to do. It's not, you might be tempted to talk to your boss, even if your boss is very nice to you, but history shown is that there tends to be not a lot of ways that you can win there. Some bosses are actually chill about it. It's very rare, but it can happen. But in most cases, they will. It's very common for them to do something to stop you or try to avoid this process, and that's not something that you want to have. So the best thing is what you can do is you first talk to some people you can trust. Talk to your colleagues. And then find some people that are thinking the same way. You can start talking about problems that you have in your company, like, hey, we have to do overtime again, or hey, like the reviews that we got this year for our raises have been really shady. Talk about these topics and find people who are like-minded like you and want to do something about it. Then you get, then you have some people and they support it, but they don't really want to take action here. They just want to, they're like, yeah, I would support this, but they don't really have time or to do anything about it. And some people that really go, let's make this happen. You want to look for the second group of people, and you want to form like a little circle of people that say, we want to do something about it. And you have your little, let's say, inner circle of people that you trust. And then you make, what you're going to do is you're going to make a very big list of every single employee in the company. And then you're going to look at it together, and you're going to say, okay, for each employee, like, how likely are they to support this? Maybe they are, you know them very well, and you think, yeah, they'll probably be fine with this. They will probably support this. Or maybe they are like super close to management. Maybe it's like a lead or something, and then maybe it's a bit more risky to talk to them. And then you say, probably don't talk to these people, and definitely don't talk to any sort of managers. So you have a list at the end of people where you want to talk to some of them, you don't want to talk to other people. And then you go down the list. You say, okay, well, this month maybe I'll talk to some of these people, and this other person will talk to some people. So you go down and you try to get enough people on board so that when you kick off this process, you actually you have enough people that will be on your side when you start it out. And then you keep doing that. It's a process. It can take a few months. For some people, it took a year. I think the time that I did it, it took us about, I want to say like 6 to 8 months. And then you're looking to have roughly 50% at least filled. And then once that is going, you can then start the process. And again, the process involves a lot of legal documents. I would recommend to talk to us if you plan to do this, because it's a bit of a legal process, and I wouldn't cover everything here. But then you can kick it off, and then you will have a vote, and then hopefully you get your workers' council, which is really nice to have.
I want to add that VOD is supporting you here in Germany, even if you have just a few members. So you can also reach out to them and ask them anytime, like, hey, we're doing this. How do we do this best? So they have a lot of experience and know just by telling you how the company culture is, how the company mood is at the moment, how to approach it best. Thank you. I think you are really doing great talk about all the points that I want to talk about. Are there any more potential issues when establishing a workers' council? What to watch out for? Jamie, can you give us a few words about that?
Yes, absolutely. Because here's the thing about forming a workers' council, which is it is a process. Now, don't get me wrong, it is a democratic process. It will also, in doing this process, allow you to get to understand your colleagues and their concerns very well. But you have to go about this in a very safe manner, because even though once you have signed the papers and you have begun the process of forming a workers' council, you are given legal protection for that. There is a reason you're given that legal protection. Things I've had colleagues either at other companies experience in the past has been being yelled at by bosses, having a rumor. One of them had a rumor started by the bosses that she was mentally challenged, apparently. They may try to just, sack you and put you on garden leave, which, fun fact, that can be very illegal in Germany. Just sacking someone, with no notice. But they may also try like other smaller things, like the thing that I saw when we really started this at my own company. Well, there's two things. First off, we had to have 2 attempts at it, because the first time we had a mole, an informant, because by the way, do not, when you're setting up a works council, do not use like your company Slack or something. I got to be honest, we use Discord. Made a Discord server for that, which was very nice. But, you know, make sure that when you're in the early stages of planning, especially, that these are people you can trust. Obviously, once you've announced it publicly, everyone can be involved. And you would really be surprised who would want to join the workers' council, like legitimately. Like with one company example I saw, they actually had someone from their HR department join because apparently she had an issue with the bosses. Ironically, that same company then later sacked their HR department. But so these are issues you can run into. Another one as well, and this isn't an issue from the boss's side or the legal side, is that you have to be able to balance this with your current work. Because of course, when you have formed a workers' council and when you're doing the actual work of a workers' council, whether you're on the election board before the election or you get elected to the board, it's an electoral process. Once you've got all the paperwork set, it actually goes pretty smoothly. You know, once you're on the council, you have to be given work time to do those duties. But when you're in those early stages of planning, this is something you have to initiate on your own time, right? And so striking that balance is very important. The good news is, since it's collective, though, you know, you thankfully can spread it across your team instead of having to do it with all by yourself, hopefully.
There's like, if I can add a couple of things. So this all makes it sound maybe scary to set up a workers' council, and maybe to some extent it is, but I think there's 3 things that are really good to emphasize. The first thing is that your colleagues, believe me, will be interested in this. Like you might be scared to talk to your colleagues. I have never ever heard of anyone setting up a workers' council and then being like, oh, I don't have enough colleagues who would want this. Everybody wants this. Like it's always the same. The second thing is you are legally protected. At least in Germany you are. I'm not sure about how the laws work everywhere else, but in Germany you are legally protected, especially if you're a union member. Your boss can't just go and fire you for doing this. And the first thing I want to mention is that there's been others that have been doing this before, and you can talk to them. So this is not, you're not the first one to tread this path. Others have been doing this. There's been a lot of work that we have online and stuff that we can share, and we can support you in a lot of ways.
We do have to speed things a little bit up because we still have a lot of topics to cover, if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And I want to segue into this because you already started talking about Jamie, like you did the council work. What now? So how does the daily work of a workers' council actually looks like? Just very briefly run down so people are prepared what they're gonna face after everything is set up and proper. Because I'm pretty sure that's something that is not very clear just from knowing what a council is.
Yeah, so I've been on a small council, but I've been on it, and a lot of the things that you do in the beginning is basically set up routines. There's like certain things that you have to do, like monthly conversations with the employer or their representatives, stuff like that. And basically the first few months of a council is always, first of all, learning what you have to do. So like, this is the thing, don't try to learn everything before you've found a council, what you have to do as a council member. That there's a lot of stuff, and there is a mandatory and paid by the company and on company time courses that you will go through, at least 4, that will tell you what you as a works counselor have to do. They're, by the way, really fun because they're mostly like a week and you get a lot of food and talk a lot about workers' rights. It's kind of, it's actually way more entertaining than you think it is. Anyway, when I say that workers' rights are like rights, it sounds like lawyer stuff. And it is a lot of this, but it's fun. Anyway, so you learn how to do this. You learn how to set up these things. You set up the routines. And mostly this is kind of like the beginning of it. It's also a very important thing is that you kind of keep in touch. And this is kind of like a generally democratic rule that a lot of governments should think of these days. You need to keep in touch with the people. So like you need to obviously have like some form where like people can come to you and tell their grievances or what their problems is or their wishes. It doesn't always have to be a problem. It can also be like, I would like to have this and this thing. Couldn't we set up this and stuff like that? A very common thing that I did no, twice basically was setting up a regular office hour basically, where like people can come in and tell you stuff. Sometimes this is kind of like more like a round table where like people will come in, multiple people will just talk about stuff, but it can also be like individual, arrangements that you do. So that's very important. Keep in touch with the people, like talk to the people, ask them questions. Be available via phone all the time. So that's the thing. And then like the what you're mostly doing is like kind of like dealing with like being the in-between people between the employees and management. And you have like certain legal frameworks where you can basically create stuff that is called like basically company laws, where you can like try to cement certain benefits. Benefits are important. You cannot cement the other thing, non-benefits. For the people into a form of like legal text work that then goes for everybody. And also the company has to adhere to that. So that the management can't just change it. The classic difference is now as a works council, you can basically cement certain things. So it's not just like, oh, we're so lucky that we were given this. No, like you basically fought for it and then it was legally put down. And that's it. Another thing that's very routinely is that you will be involved in hiring, firing, meaning like when people are hired, you need to be heard as a works council. So like we will see that people come in, and with that, a lot of the classic protections for minorities come from. So you have to check like, we hire new programmers. Why did we invite like 5 men, although like 15 women applied, and we have no women programmers? Why the fuck? That's actually in the law, and at least in Germany, that these are specific things you have to think about where you are. It will be a little different, but this is routine stuff that you're doing, and I think. Basically think of these things. There's a lot of more of these like routine things that you can do. So like this is the stuff they do. So I don't talk too much. I will keep it here. You can ask more questions later, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'm also going to skip ahead a little bit because there's one topic that I would absolutely love to hear more about. And I think it's also very valuable is we have been talking about unionizing and workers' councils across different countries. And we have 2 people here who have experiences in the US and Canada. So Devin, if you could start off, tell us about unionizing and unions in the US. How do they compare to the EU?
Where do we begin with the United States? So basically, I was so a direct join union such as Verdi, like you have in Germany, is pretty rare in the US. Verdi, they have a website. You can go up, sign online, tell them how much you make, but they're like, they're not narcs. They're not going to like go into your bank account. It's all very like, it's easy, and there's trust there immediately. In the US, generally, there are very few unions like this and only for specific industries, especially for games and tech, where there's almost no union rep. You have to basically create a new union in every workplace. So the idea is there's a large union that already exists. So in my case, that was CWA, the Communications Workers of America, and they do stuff like AT&T or like internet folks. And then when they were doing video games, basically what you have to do is in every different workplace, you have to have a new vote essentially and a big campaign and get everyone to like fill in a union card to vote for your union. And this is like a long process. It's usually very, I don't know, it's fraught. Management is allowed to do a lot of things. Like in the US, most states have work for hire. Is that what it's called?
Right to work.
Right to work. Yep, that's what it is. The right to work law, which means that they can fire you at any time for any reason. And it works both ways because then you can quit at any time for any reason, right? So it's fair. So, they'll use right to work to fire people who are trying to organize or get people to vote. They'll install surveillance cameras, stuff like that, things that are illegal, but there's really not a lot of ways currently to push back against that. Like the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, which is supposed to monitor employees for this kind of behavior, is drastically underfunded. So anyway, you go through your campaign and you build up what's called a local. If everybody votes and you get a majority, then you get to have a union local at your workplace. And that's like a chapter of the union. And so the nice thing is that you talk to the big union first, like all the locals that already exist for CWA, you talk to them first and they'll help you for free because you are broke. Obviously, you work in games. And it's only when you have voted to establish your local and to be an official part and chapter of the union that then the dues kick in and all of that. So yeah, that's how it works in the US. It takes a lot longer and it's a lot more scattered. However, great news is that you can see down here, the CWA has now gotten enough video game workers and heard kind of enough specific video game concerns about how many of us are contractors or freelancers or trying to get into the industry or in between jobs because of the crazy layoffs. And so this is a direct join union like Verdi. You can sign up online to the UVW, United Video Game Workers. You can be a student, you can be unemployed, you can be a freelancer, it doesn't matter, sign up online and get involved. So that's super duper cool.
I just want to add to that as well, that this is actually a very big new thing that's happened, because when I was in Canada back, oh god, nearly 10 years ago, oh geez, that was not a thing. When I joined, you know, my company that I was with, they were already under a union. They already had that, they had negotiated at some point, and I was very fortunate for that. The experience in Canada, how would I put it? It's very similar to the US. Obviously, there's some perks, the main being that if you lose your job, you know, you can still go to a doctor. But even in Canada, I would say that the workers' rights aren't nearly as strong as, say, in a country like Germany. You know, there's no real system of workers' councils. And then in Canada, I know things change a little bit from province to province. I believe Quebec works a little bit differently than, say, things did for me in BC. So do keep that in mind. As always, YMMV. But yeah, I would say the US and Canada are very similar in that regards. That said, if you're in Canada, you will have a little bit of an easier time, and people will be a little, I noticed, and maybe this is just a Victoria, British Columbia thing, but people are in general more open to the idea of unionizing. I mean, I saw everything from game studios to the local dispensary form unions back when I was living there.
Interesting to hear perspective from different countries too. I do feel like it's great to hear, since we're such a global conference now. I hope that this is something super useful. But there's one more useful thing that probably on your mind. Since the type of work we're doing is not always local in one company, there's also a chance that you are a full remote company, half remote company. You have a lot of work from home policies. So not everyone is coming to the office. Not everyone is living the office culture, but more of the home office culture. How can you organize efficiently when you can't see your colleagues in person?
I'll answer that, because the whole VOW Union campaign we did online. We were all contractors, and that meant we lived in different states in the US and even in different countries. So we had to do all of it online, and many of us were strangers. So yeah, it was really a matter of, it was that first connection, I think, to each other, that like, hey, you wanna talk about how much money you make? Want to start a union about it? That was the hardest, but as it turns out, it was very easy to establish, because one thing we had all been wishing for in our careers was we had been reading each other's writing, we're all writers, and really admiring it. And so it was such an easy excuse to finally be like, hi, we've never really spoken, but like, I'm such a fan of your work. And that, I don't know, it triggered a lot of really good connections right away. We started talking. The thing about organizing remotely is that the face-to-face time is still really important. Like, there's just something psychological that happens when you see somebody's face. So if you're going to organize remotely, try to plan something remotely, like, text is okay in certain situations, but especially the first time, and then in regular intervals after that, make sure you have a video call and you can hear their voice and see their expressions, and they can see you, because there's just something in the human instinct where we respond to that. Something else, I mean, we also got very lucky, I'll say, in VOW, because we were all writers, so we're all very good at writing and reading, and so the written communication was quite easy for us. But what we did was set up a Discord and kind of try to replicate all of our needs into separate channels, like the nerdy game devs we are. So like, sometimes things get really scary, right? Or sometimes a manager retaliates and is quite cruel to someone, and you need a place to talk about it. So we had like a event channel, for instance, and that would be the place where we don't want to be negative all the time, but when we need to talk about how scared or how angry we are, we go into the vent. We also organized, we had to, game nights or like writing projects that we did together, things completely separate from work, just to like connect as people. And that was really, really important, because again, when you're not physically there with someone, it can be harder to feel that element of trust. So organizing remotely is all about building up that like human to human connection.
Thank you so much. That's so valuable. Yeah, I think we have to come to an end with the questions. There's one last thing I want to ask you to talk about is, so what happened in the last years here and also globally? What are the big wins for workers' rights and for unionization? And then we will transition into Q&A because I can imagine you have a few questions. Yeah.
Okay, I guess I start with what happened in Germany specifically. I mean, I think you need to keep in mind not just like we talked about the state of the industry that is kind of like in a bad shape right now, but like also where the games industry comes from and from what times. It's not that old, you know, like it's organized in the last 50, 40 years. Yeah, well, that's already quite long, but really professionally, like from the 80s onwards then into this. So it's like a time where like collective let's say actions have been on a decline, and the IT industry is highly individualized, and there's a lot of people that were like, we're making our fortune here, we can bargain ourselves, we don't need this thing. And so like this is a mindset that is still pretty active. And within the last, like, let's say 10 years, this has like and specifically the countries that we also have here up here that we know of, this has been like more and more, this notion has been starting to be fought more and more and more. So we had stuff like Game Workers Unite, if you remember that. It's still around, of course. Like these are initiatives that we're trying to do exactly like bring game workers into the unions to kind of like explain what it is again. And for example, in Germany, the latest push basically just started about barely 3 years ago, when basically a few NRW people wanted to found a works council, and we called VODs and says like, help. And they were like, good question. We help you, you help us. We don't know. Huh? Yeah, you tell me, you tell us. And then basically through that, we could establish like this loop of like us actually telling the union what we need, telling them stuff. And then this learning loop enables us to build structures faster and faster and faster. And within now 2.5 years, we basically went from barely any works council to over 10. So like, and this is fast. And this is so like, we can see how like there's a big hunger among workers to kind of have more representation, be more seen, be more heard. And that's really, let's say, encouraging, because I feel like we have been, I mean, this is kind of like millennial talk now, been so like individualized that we just, you know, like we just all on our own, we just have to hustle and hustle and hustle. So like it shows that it's all in us, that we can go way beyond that. And it makes me very hopeful for the future. So I think we actually established quite a lot from, yeah, a very unorganized, and that I mean like not an insult, but simply like a fact state. So yay.
I'm feeling similarly optimistic about the US. I mean, 5 years ago in 2020 was when I went on strike. This kind of thing was absolutely unheard of. We thought we would have no support. Instead, every major news outlet picked it up. All these big name game devs were reblogging our strike fund. We were funded in 24 hours. Like, the sentiment is there, and it was there at the time. And since then, we've experienced these ripples that go on. Like, even the smallest thing that you do, you have no idea how many people it's actually going to impact, because this industry is so small. We had people from the Google union, the Alphabet union, coming up to us later and saying, hey, those things you did with like the laws about contract workers, we're incorporating some of that. And now the Google union has contractors in it. ZeniMax has unionized. Activision Blizzard has unionized. These are major companies. ZeniMax QA ratified the first union agreement in the video games industry in the United States just a couple of months ago. Unions are sharing resources together. There have been multiple other unions made at smaller indies. Adjacent, SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild, they went on a very long strike and just recently won protections against their voices being used to train AI of themselves from their previous games, which is a really scary thought, and I'm glad that they won that. In the GDC State of the Industry survey, the last 2 years has included questions on how do you feel about unionization? Should we be talking about this as an industry? And almost 80% of participants said they felt strongly, or at least a little bit, like little to very strong, positively about unions. It's insane that that's in a State of the Industry survey. This is the second or third. Have you done this 3 times? Union talk at DevCom? This second one, all right, second year in a row. This is the second biggest industry conference in the world, right? Like, so, again, this in 5 years. So the momentum is really there, and I think that's really encouraging. Netherlands? What y'all doing? Nothing in the Netherlands.
That's maybe for a future talk then. Yeah, I think we transition to the Q&A now, because we kind of have to be done in 15 minutes. But keep in mind, you can approach the panelists also afterwards. And yeah, let's start.
Does this work with mask? Yeah. My question is, my experience with Workers' Council is that it's ineffective and then it fizzles out. And it's because everyone has the same deadlines. Everyone is busy, or the person who was chosen seemed good but didn't end up being good for the job, or the people. And how the fuck do you avoid that? Like, you have all the, like, even if you have the scheduled time for it, you still have the deadlines. You still have to do it.
That's a very good point. Specifically, if it's smaller companies, I feel like, I mean, no, it's easy for me to guess here because I only work in smaller companies. But in the end, so first of all, if it's the wrong person that's in there, you as people can kind of like, I forgot what it's called when you like basically upstage the government. This is a thing that you can do. Obviously, you should avoid that because like if you're just setting it up, this is like a stressful thing to do. But the other thing is also like before that stage, you can just basically as people like try to put that time in and like push for it. And now the deadlines come in a way, the works councils, they have the right to, so like if you're a works counselor, the boss can't tell you can't not do this. They have to put the time in. So like you as people, if the works counselors don't do that, you have to demand it and also tell like, if you don't do this, you are here to represent us. You are supposed to do this. You're not here because, yeah, you I don't know, whatever they thought it was. So like you have to push for that. And when it comes to deadlines and stuff like that, that's a thing that you can, I mean, if that's an issue that they can't work properly, then it's an issue for the whole company. And then you have your first issue that the works council really should push for. It's like, what the fuck is with the deadlines? We're getting like, basically, I mean, that already sounds a little bit like either hidden crunch or just open out crunch. That needs to be tackled. And that's what the works council is there for. And they have the, let's say, the legal tools for that. Especially in a small company, which is the tool that I would see like you should probably not immediately pull. But like threatening legal actions is very scary because the company has to pay that. And nobody wants that. And if you go that way, you have a lot of leverage. Specifically because I would argue, like the works councils have this demand of like have like a trustful, work, let's say, relationship with management. And I would argue if the management is like basically making your work impossible by like pushing impossible deadlines and crunching everybody, that's not trustful. That's deceitful. That's horrible. And there you have your first entry. Like, and if they try to pull that card on you, that's it. But yeah, in a way, this means where you have to kind of like be a little bit forceful and like see the structure as what it is. It's supposed to represent there. If the people that you voted in don't do it, you make them or replace them. It's, of course, it sounds easy to say, hard to do. But yeah, I see what you mean. So like this is also very important when you're in the voting process, specifically in a small company. Just make sure to really that the people that you vote in, that they go through the motions, that they're kind of like aware of what they're getting into, because it is, and I speak out of experience, specifically in small companies, it's an emotional job because you are very close to company management and you will have to deal with all of that. But it's also good because otherwise you will still deal with it. You just don't have any power. I know it's like not the perfect answer, but there's no perfect answer, I guess. Yeah, I hope it helped a bit.
And I just want to quickly add to that, don't vote in managers, people. Like, when you actually vote for the members, like, sometimes what people will do, what the companies will do is they would like, oh, yeah, we support the Workers' Council. Anyway, here's some candidates from the management team, Don't vote those people in.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. I represent one of the unions that said I didn't make it on the slide. It's similar to VODs, so it's like a broad church union, a bit of stack system, but the one that I represent is specifically game makers. One thing that I found is that the best way to kind of get people to understand and to be interested in joining the union is talking to them, explaining the both individual benefits and the broad lobbying representation that the union does. But what I find, and it's something that you brought up a bit, is that people that are in different disciplines or different types of companies might be more or less willing to discuss or kind of get interested in joining the union. And when you're talking about a broad church, like I assume Verdi is, your coverage, like the percentage of employees covered, is a big part of your leverage. So what I've seen people in positions like marketing, like UA, sales, things like that, and specifically more so people on the mobile side, are less willing to consider joining a union because they feel that, well, the industry as a whole might be turbulent, but we are good. So have you had any luck with finding good arguments or good approaches to those people who will end up being as part of the shitstorm, but they don't see it now?
So, hi, actually just answering that. Hi, I'm actually am on marketing and UA side. And I honestly though, the big part about this is that, while there's this idea of and on marketing side where it's like, oh, we're safe, we're above it all, whatnot. That I know, so at the very least from my experiences, are just those who are like in the more senior levels, those actually going through the numbers, those actually going through and dealing with finding the next big creatives or whatnot that will do well. Those ones, I gotta be honest, feel a lot of times have a lot on their plate and really do resonate a lot with the idea of finding solidarity through a union and feeling heard, because at the end of the day I found at least when it comes to actually talking with folks on that side, just having that dialogue already, you will find that there is perhaps a lot more interest there than you may initially think. I know that's also maybe an imperfect answer, but
Hi. Maybe you already talked about this topic and I'm totally zoned out on this point. But yeah, about management roles and unions. Like there are two sides, right? The workers and the management, and they're like fighting each other, going about the workers, right? What about the smaller managers, like, lead artists, associate producers, junior art directors? I feel like being in these roles is like being a little bit conflicted, because on the one side it has to be too loyal to the management and also loyal to the company and doing everything in its interest. But on the other side, you also can be exploited in all the ways, right? Like time, personally, and all the way around. Like I feel like this little split of the roles is kind of like have this unsweet spot being in this conflicted area. And what will be your take on this? Do you have like experience being people in these roles and handling these situations? Thank you.
Yeah, I think I can instantly answer that, because when I was works counselor, I was management is also like a dangerous word. When we say management, we obviously mean like company leadership, like either owners or directly below that, the C-level, so to speak, and its bubble. But you also have like management, often producers are referred to as management, but they're just like, you have like team producers that are just like project managers, so, like depending on where you will go. But like the lead area, that's like a case-by-case thing. So like we had people from the leads that were like where we knew them, where we were trusting them and we're talking to them, and then you can integrate them, but others not. So like it's kind of like similar to everybody. You kind of have to judge case by case. The most important thing is the moment where they have rights, like contractual rights that go above the standard right that an employee has, then it gets that's dangerous. Then first, in Germany, is most likely then not allowed that they're their part. They're not actually represented by the council, but it might depend on country to country. So like there you need to be careful. And then there's a few, let's say, specializations that for the organizational part, not for the later the integration, but I would be very careful. Sorry for all the HR people, but like I don't trust HR. It doesn't mean that I don't have friends that are in HR. That's a different thing. But like for organization, I would be careful here. And the same kind of like goes into the lead thing. If you have that lead that is, well, let's call it a team representative lead that often gets shit from the top that's saying like, you're too much on the side of the team, that's probably one of you. If it's the other thing, probably not one of you. So this is where I would kind of like go about feel that out. Because the best producers and leads are always the ones that are on the side of the team, because that's where they should be. And fuck company management for like pulling this bullshit. That's nothing more than, I don't know, class warfare within your company or something.
To me, it's been really interesting to see that in German unions, middle and even upper management are allowed to be like involved. Everything up until the C level can be included. Because in the US, that's absolutely not the case. Even if you're middle management, you're a manager. And there's a power imbalance there that, this was supposed to correct. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting, like I'd be excited to read about some like best practices, if anyone were to collect case studies and do something about that. But yeah.
Wait, sorry, one last thing. Maybe sometimes the nice thing about elites is that they have like some edge, like they they can look into things and see things that a normal employee can see. So they can also be a nice mole for you, the other way around. So maybe don't put them in front stench. They're just on your side, but they don't know.
wanted to say that one last question is okay. I think we have 5 more minutes, and then we need to leave, so the next talk can happen. We'll be around. Feel free to approach us anytime. Yeah, there's one more question.
Hi. Thank you a lot for the talk. It was very insightful. Forming a work council and being in it has a lot of legal language that people have to understand. Do you have any tips for people that are not native in the language that is being used by the country that work council is being formed?
Yes, actually. And one of the very good things that we were able to get, and this is something that VOD offers, as long as at least, I think in our case, like not even everyone who is organizing was a VOD member, but most of us were, where we were actually able to get like a presentation shown to us. I believe it was from their federal office. Oh god, it was a bit ago. But like literally like have someone come in with a PowerPoint and explain, all right, hi, these are the terms you need to know. Here's what these are. If this is violated, here's our thing. You will get a copy of this PowerPoint after. That helps a ton. And of course, because the union did it, it cost us nothing extra. Like that was so valuable. And if you are forming a works council, I know I sound like an ad right now, but whatever. I'm a YouTuber. It's fun. You know, VOD really, they have a dedicated web page of all the resources. They have a contact form. You can just, if you want to form a works council, you aren't sure about the legal language, you can write them in English or German, whatever, third German union, but you can write them in English if you'd like, and they will help you set it up. May take them a week. I think it took a week or two to get our first contact after I did that the first time. And yeah, just they will not only do that, but like if you need like templates for forms or whatnot, they have those. Like the resources is there and it's yours for the using.
Find your colleagues in the industry. There's people who've done it before you and they will know what to do.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. We need to come to an end. Thank you so much for the panelists for taking the time to prepare this for us. That was very insightful. And thank you for being here and listening and contributing questions.